If you are buying a home in 2025, don't just focus on the price, focus on the perks. Here are 7 things that sellers are willing to pay for right now.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Realty Talk Podcast, your favorite podcast on the planet. I believe we are self-promoting that, but yeah, we're excited to be here today. We've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Today we're jumping right into market, and what we're feeling in the market is potentially feels like it could be moving towards more of a buyer's market. I'm not going to say that. I don't think it's necessarily a buyer's market, but buyers do have some advantages in the type of market that we're in right now. Outside of, I think it's really easy to get caught up on price and rates and everything else. But because of the way the market currently sits, there are some things that buyers can do to take advantage of where we are today.
Let's talk about it.
Let's do it. So
we have a short list of 7 things.
7 things that you can ask for a seller to pay for in 2025. Just not buy house when you're buying a buy house property.
Yes.
We're giving away all the secrets here today. So
I love it. So let's start with the first one.
Okay. Closing costs. So buyers always have the ability to negotiate closing costs for sellers to cover maybe their escrow fees, title fees, really anything that's related to the real estate transaction. I think, with the current market and the current dynamic, buyers, should request those things from the seller, especially depending on how long the property has been sitting. You have the ability to potentially get the seller to pay for some of those expenses.
So for some of our listeners that maybe have never bought a house before or sold a house, what comprises closing costs?
Yeah.
Or what is the estimated total of what closing costs would be?
Yeah, it's usually around 1% of the total transaction. If you are doing a loan, it's going to be a little bit more because you're going to pay for a lender as well.
Yep.
But escrow, if you're not doing a loan, you really just kind of have escrow, title, transfer tax fees for that. And then if you are doing a loan, then that could potentially be anywhere from 1 to 2%, depending on how many points they charge on that.
Got it. So closing costs are negotiable.
They are negotiable. You can ask the seller to pay for it in this type of market. Now, when the market shifts and you have a seller that has 30 offers on their property, it is not realistic that the seller is going to pay for the closing costs. So it's really important to work with an agent that has a good pulse on the market. But that's just one thing that you could do.
But I mean, that's a pretty big deal. We're talking about 1% of the total transaction. So if you're buying a $1 million house in Southern California today, we're talking about $10,000.
Yeah.
Significant. That you might be able to get the seller to pay for all or a portion of.
Right.
Exactly. So that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Okay. What else do we got? What's number 2?
Number 2 is mortgage rate buydowns. So very popular this year, 2025. The mortgage rate, the interest rate on your mortgage obviously determines how much you're going to be spending, on a monthly basis. So back to affordability. And so we've had, I guess, 3 consecutive years of mortgages north of 6%, I believe. Maybe a couple of segments, slightly below that. But if you're buying $1 million house, that's going to be roughly $6,000 a month, right? And so where we're at today, it's 6.4, 6.5, 6.4, 6.5%. So the difference between a 6.5 and a 5.5 or a 4.5% mortgage is pretty impactful.
Significant. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, I think, this is something that we've adopted in our business model quite a bit. Buy House specifically bakes that into, with interest rates being where they are, they bake that into all of their properties when they're selling. So anyone walking into a Buy House property knows that house qualifies for as low as a 4% interest rate.
Yeah.
So,
and that makes the difference of, call it $1,200 a month on the mortgage.
Yeah.
So if you're new to buying a home, when you go and get a mortgage, they look at your debt to income ratio. So how much debt you have currently, how much money you're making, and then what this new mortgage is going to do in terms of that ratio. And so, call it 40, 50%, you can get through. I mean, you might be able to go a little higher depending on where you're at in your income level. But you've got to calculate that total number of what your mortgage payment is going to be into that ratio to understand if you can afford it. And so if you drop that, let's say it is the difference of $6,000 a month and it goes down to $4,800.
Yeah.
It makes a huge impact depending on your income.
Right.
I mean, that's the difference of buying the house or not.
And the best part about that program is that the seller pays for it. So
Yes.
the buyer is not paying for that rate buy down. It is coming from the seller.
Yeah, and what obviously what you're seeing in the market today with builders, new builders, that's what they're attacking. I mean, they'll advertise in certain states all the way down to like 3% today.
Yeah.
And so they're baking that into the cost of the product, but it makes makes affordability much easier.
Right.
So.
Okay, you ready for the next one?
Let's do it.
Okay. Repairs and upgrades. So that's a big one in a seller's market.
Yep.
It's one of those things where, I mean, you're happy to get the property. Like you're going to take it as is and you do an inspection and you pray that the seller will fix some of the big ticket items or, health and safety concerns. But in the current situation, in the current scenario, what we're saying is buyers might be requesting a little bit more and leaning on the seller a little more to turn them over a property that is to their liking 100%. So I think you've probably seen that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I could give an example, a real world example.
Yeah.
We had a buyer on a property that came in at a pretty decent number, but their request was for us to fill in the pool. So they liked the house, they were happy to move into it, but the deal breaker for them was there's a swimming pool. Young kids, they didn't want to have a swimming pool. They would buy it if we took the pool out and deleted it and put grass in.
Yeah.
Right? So
wow.
They wanted something completely move-in ready. They didn't want to go and have to deal with that. Ultimately, we ended up selling to somebody else, but I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, in that
That's
situation, that was a no-go.
Yeah.
But I thought what the example I thought you were going to say is it might even be on the same property where we received a repair request that was just like 10 pages of like, hey, can you do this and this and this? And the floodgates are open, and I think buyers are learning or hearing that maybe they could take advantage of it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if you've got somebody, I mean, you also have to think about where we're at in the market. If you have a seller that's selling today, they're likely selling because they need to, right? And they've got 3 years of appreciation.
Right.
And so for the most part, if they haven't refied and taken some of the equity out, they probably have plenty of room to go and do things that are reasonable. So if you just hate the paint color, or if the roof has only got a couple years left, if you're the only person in the game negotiating, you're probably going to get that.
Yeah.
So it's a fair ask.
Okay. What else?
Number 4, HOA fees and property taxes. So homeowners association fees, which are calculated into your debt to income. So if you are looking at $1 million house and your mortgage is at 6%, it's $6,000 a month-ish, right? If there's another $500 a month in HOA fees, your payment from the lender standpoint is $6,500.
Right.
So it's hurting your ability by $500 a month to afford that property. And property taxes, depending on where you're at, they could be really expensive in California. Or Texas, even higher. Some states they're zero. And so walk us through what that looks like.
Yeah, I actually have never seen that. I've never seen where a buyer asked for that, but it's something that, buyers could ask for. It goes down to like everything is a negotiation. We're negotiating everything when it comes to the contract. And it kind of goes back to what we touched on with the closing costs. It's like, when you're in a situation, as you mentioned, where a seller needs to sell and maybe they've been on the market for a long time, hey, get creative. And as you said, I mean, potentially if that's affecting debt to income ratio and the seller takes that off the table, that's always positive as well.
So we did have an offer on a property that we were selling that the buyer requested for us to pay 1 year of HOA fees in advance.
Wow.
And that was going to make them eligible to purchase it with their I think it was a 2-1 buy down.
Yeah.
We ultimately didn't sell to them.
Yeah.
Somebody else came in, but it was a small townhome in Anaheim, California, really close to Disneyland actually. But there were like 15 offers.
Oh, yeah.
So their number was pretty good, but
yeah, different market.
Very different.
Okay, home warranty coverage. So that is pretty standard for a buyer to request, but I think a lot of times buyers don't know that they have that ability to get the home warranty. And also, there are so many things that pop up on inspections or where it's like the AC unit is maybe ending its life or it's nearing the end of its life. And so, one of those warranties potentially covers that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times buyers don't know, but you can also extend the coverage. So standard is a year that a buyer would request from a seller, but you could potentially ask for a few more years there.
And what does that cost?
It costs the buyers nothing, but for a seller, it depends on the home size, anywhere from $500 to $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it protects you as a buyer.
Yeah.
Like, again, let's use the AC example. You buy the house, during your inspection, AC is totally fine and functional. Maybe it's 10 years old, but buying that home warranty and having the seller pay for it, $1,000, let's say in that example, you might be able to, if the AC goes out within that first year, to get a new AC that's going to cost you $5,000 covered with that policy, right? So it's almost like you're negotiating the buyer to pay for that as an insurance policy for the future because you haven't lived in the house, you don't know what might go wrong,
right?
And if you're not asking for it if you're buying and you're not asking the seller to cover it, you might be exposing yourself to stuff that you don't know,
right? Definitely. Okay,
number 6. Appliances and furniture. This one's actually kind of an interesting one in our current market in Los Angeles. I'm going to go in a different direction on this one.
Okay.
There's a luxury tax in California now, or in Los Angeles County, north of $5 million. So if you are buying a house for $4.9999 million, or $5 million, there is a 4% difference, right? So I think it's 4% at that number.
I think
we'll have to double check. So you could literally net more as a seller at 4.9 than $5,000,001.
Yeah.
The way people are getting around that is by covering a portion of the purchase in appliances and furniture because they're not physically attached to the property.
Right.
So things like washer, dryer, refrigerator, maybe there's an awesome sectional that fits specifically for that room.
Right.
Those are all negotiable.
Yeah.
Right? And we've seen offers where we're selling property. In fact, we just had one where the buyer came in and said, hey, we'll buy at this number if these 4 couches come with the property.
Right.
They were staged.
Yeah.
We agreed, but we just ended up buying them from our stager.
Yeah. 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 And I think, going to like the market as a whole, I think when you walk into a property as a buyer, if it's staged well, it's very often that the buyer is going to be like, I like the way that couch looks there. And so in that scenario, it was, it's done with a stager and you bought the couch from the stager.
Yeah.
I think a lot of stagers have adapted to that or, want that. So for a buyer, don't be afraid to ask for the staging and have that thrown in.
I think it's important to talk to as well, though, if you're a first-time home buyer, and let's just say you've rented an apartment for the last 5 years, and now you're becoming a homeowner. One thing that I think a really good agent is going to prepare you for is the expense of furnishing your new property. Because when you walk through a fully staged property, you've envisioned that this is what it's going to feel like.
Yeah.
The day you move in, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Right? And so, that budget of going and furnishing the new place could be
significant.
It can be scary.
Yeah.
And so negotiating that in is a really, really good decision. Things like a new washer dryer, things like a refrigerator. I mean, those two alone could be $7,500.
Right.
that you don't really want to have to go and spend if you don't need to.
Yeah.
And odds are, if somebody's selling today, they're moving because they need to.
Yeah.
Maybe they're moving out of state for a job. They probably don't even want to take that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I always encourage my sellers. It's like nobody wants to be moving all of this stuff. So make it easier on yourself and let it go.
But if it is a washer dryer and it's not new, I highly recommend a product. I think it's called Afresh at Target.
Okay.
Because I don't like washing my clothes in a washing machine that was somebody else's.
Can we talk about Paul, the germaphobe Hansen? Paul Fix-It-All Hansen, Paul germaphobe Hansen. Like this is a true statement that it was kind of unexpected when I learned that about you. I have to say, I didn't think it was going to be. But my first inclination was when I got in your truck the first time, and there was like a giant hand sanitizer bottle that was used often. Yeah. And I think
I've gotten a lot better since having kids.
Yeah.
But germs are just, I can't do it. I can't do it.
It was unexpected.
Yeah.
It was unexpected. Especially in you own a pest control business.
Yeah.
And you're you're not in construction, but you show up at, a lot of properties that aren't in the best condition. And
I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty, but I want to wash them immediately. And there's a difference between dirty. There's a difference between dirty and then also somebody else's like germs.
Yeah, I think that's more what yours is like related to other people specifically.
People germs.
Yeah. People germs.
Yeah.
Not like
somebody else's clothes.
Yeah.
In being washed in your new washing machine. Afresh is the product. We're officially sponsored by Afresh.
Yeah, they should be.
Yeah.
After that. Okay.
Number
Last
7?
but not least. Yeah.
Wait, is this one you or me?
I don't remember.
I'll do it. Credits for cosmetic updates.
Okay.
So instead of sellers doing the work, buyers can ask for a credit. Interesting.
That's super common. And I think, I think that's the easiest way, especially if you're trying to close a transaction in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And realistically, you probably want things done the way you want them done versus the way that a seller is going to do them. And you never know who they're going to hire. And so I really feel like asking for credit, I always push my buyers for that because, I've seen it go wrong when they do it the other way.
Yeah, let's just think logically. Let's say you're buying a property and the sewer has some issues and the inspector says it's going to be $5,000 worth of work. If you ask the seller to pay for that, they're going to try to find the cheapest possible plumber and maybe they're not going to do the job properly.
Yeah.
So get the $5,000 in your pocket and then go hire a plumber you trust and then hold them accountable with a warranty.
Right.
Right. So I think it's an incredibly smart thing to do if you're willing to bear the burden of hiring somebody to fix the problem.
Okay, so that was 7 things that you can ask a seller to pay for in 2025.
I mean, if you total those 7 things up, if you ask for all of them, we're like, this is like $25,000, $30,000 worth of value.
Yeah,
maybe more.
I don't know if you should ask for all of them. Consult with a good real estate agent that is going to guide you through this. But, the takeaway is, guys, honestly, you can't always just look at the rates. We talk about rates a lot on the podcast, but that can't be the only thing you're focused on, and price can't be the only thing you're focused on. It has to be the deal, and there are ways to sweeten the deal. Let's be honest.
Yeah, one of the most impactful pieces of wisdom I've ever received from somebody when I was selling my first business, I got a big number. It was an exciting number, and my mentor at the time was like, "Why are you excited?" I'm like, "'Cause this is a big number."
Yeah.
And he's like, "But what are the terms?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't care. This is the number."
Yeah.
And he's like, "The terms are everything."
Yeah.
So you can't get excited.
In the details.
Can't get excited until you see the rest of the terms. And these 7 things are arguably, from my perspective, could be more important than the price. Or like when we talk about number 2, mortgage rate buydowns. I mean, the price of the home kind of doesn't matter. If you're able to negotiate a 4% mortgage when everyone else is getting it done at 6.5%, you're winning huge.
Yeah.
So
totally. Okay.
All right. Let's close with a quote. Quote of the day.
Ooh, what do you got? You must have one in mind.
I feel like this is a good segment. I try not to have too many quotes in my head at any given moment. But I feel like, an episode or two ago, we talked a lot about being resilient as an entrepreneur or just as an individual. And the quote that stands out to me the most is, to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. Steve Prefontaine. If you're not a runner, he was one of the best American runners of all time. Tragically died in an accident. And he was known to, he was a track runner, but he was known to not win a lot of races because he would never want to be behind the leader. He would just start running as fast as he could from the outset.
Yeah.
And he was trying to break every world record that he possibly could every time he touched the track. And his coaches always had these issues like, look, if you just tuck in behind this other runner, it's going to be easier and you could win the race. And he's like, I don't give a shit about winning. I want to be the best that I can possibly be as an individual.
Yeah.
And so that quote to me has always stood out, and I think it makes it's very relevant today. So I know a lot of our listeners are real estate agents, whether you're at Innovate or another brokerage. I would just challenge you to think that way. Like, if you're giving anything less than your very best every single day when you wake up, then you're sacrificing the gift that you have, and that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
All right.
Okay.
We'll see you next week. If you haven't, please hit subscribe. It helps out a lot. Submit your stories for the next week's episode, and we'll see you in a week.
See ya.